Hopefully everyone enjoyed the desserts. No one ate one of those fish. Still offering $20 for anyone that does. Just kidding. All right. All right, so next up we have one of our own Bryant alums. We have David Greco. He's a salespreneur is a company founded by Dave Greco that can turn anyone into an amazing salesman. The company does this by selling booklets that contains Dave's secret sauce. Dave was selling since he was very young, and his passion and skill is what led him to start a company that would teach others as well. Although Dave is still in the startup stage before entering the tank with salespreneur, he was able to close some deals with his company, which helped him prove a concept, something that is definitely a huge advantage. Dave applied to be on Shark Tank, hoping to continue growing his company with the help of the Sharks, and was invited for season 3. Let's hear his story and have a wonderful time at this interactive session. Please welcome the Bryant Class of 2000, Mr. David Greco.
Oh, don't you dare look back, just keep your eyes on me. I said you're holding back. She said shut up and dance with me. This woman is my destiny. She said.
Good afternoon. Let's try that one more time. Because, I'm the warm-up for Kevin, so good afternoon. All right. So as these fine gentlemen have said, I'm a class of 2000 grad, and thanks for having me. It's great to be home. I love coming back up here. I love to come back up and talk. This is my first time actually speaking with this group. So what I wanted to do, and I got the okay by these guys, is rather than give a PowerPoint deck speech, I really want to keep this interactive. So I'm prepared to talk about the Shark Tank thing, how I got my financing, what I did with my company, what I did post-Shark Tank, and all that great stuff. But in the interest of your time, we have 30 minutes together, and I've got guys ready to scribe. If you guys want to shout out maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 things you want to cover, and I'll try and make it as interactive as I can, because I'd rather have this more of a Q&A and a real dialogue than just me up here speaking. And if it goes dead silent, that's fine, because I got stuff to talk about as a backup. Biggest failure and how I learned from it. Well, some people will ask me that, and they'll say, hey, was Shark Tank a failure? I would say no. My biggest failure early on with my company was not taking on seed financing. I turned down $1.8 million in 2008, and that was right as the market crashed, so it just made my life harder. So what I ended up doing was I ended up bootstrapping. In terms of biggest success was definitely selling the company. Hands down. So monetizing a system that people had access to and, can then use to better themselves, better their companies. I had individual sales reps. I had, whole companies that were using our system. And then scaling and replicating that was a lot of fun, too. What else?
What are some selling go-tos, maybe some keys that you look for when you're selling something new?
For example? Sure. So the question was key selling tactics, whether it's a product or a service. So I think the first piece there is you, right? It doesn't matter what your widget is or what your service might be. In the interest of this speech, what made me unique to Shark Tank was I launched my system to Shark Tank, and their producers called me. So it just made it a little bit of an interesting piece. I'm a service-oriented company, so I'm a professional services company, but it really comes down to 3 things, and it comes down to things that I'm doing right on this stage. It's your eyes, it's your energy, and it's your body language. So if I was up here kind of talking like this, you guys would all doze off and be like, who's this goon from 2000? Get him off the stage, right? But if I start coming up really animated and say, hey guys, I got this great thing I want to talk to you about, now I've got your attention. So it's more about you than it is about your product or service. And it starts there. So it starts there, whether you're pre-revenue, if you're just an idea. Just quick show of hands. Does anybody in here have a company? Has anybody started something? Does anybody have a business plan to start something? Thinking about something or have a... Okay, so now it's about execution, right? Because any of us can think stuff up, right? And don't get me wrong, there's a whole bunch of people outside of this room that want to watch the world burn. And they want to watch you fail, and they're going to tell you you're going to fail. And they're going to tell you how many times you're going to fail. But it's a matter of positive thinking and having a positive mindset. So it's more about you than any product or widget that you'll ever come across. I thought I saw another one.
What did you do immediately after Bryant?
What did I, so the question,
How was your leaving Bryant experience?
okay, so what did I do? That's a fun question. I never like to say that's a good question, because the next guy's going to say, then I got to tell him it's a great question, and the one after that I got to say that's a phenomenal question, but that's pretty solid. So the first thing I did out of Bryant was my biggest career mistake. I took the job that paid me the most money. So a great friend and mentor of mine is sitting right there with my kids, Ken Sousa, and I distinctly remember sitting in his office freshman year, because I was a CIS double major with marketing, and I said, you know, I want to do this CIS technology thing. Mind you, I had never owned or touched a computer. So this is going back a ways, but the story's still relevant. And he said, listen, man, or in his world, listen, dude, this might not be right for you. You might want to think of something else. So I had a great mentor and who became a great lifelong friend. So after Bryant, I came from a very, very blue-collar family. I was saddled with student loans like a lot of you guys are. I took a job that paid me the most money. So I remember signing with a company at the time called Hewitt Associates. It's now owned by Aon Consulting. They paid me $46,000 was my job offer, and they paid me $2,000 if I told them I was going to sign. So they said, hey, you know, $2,000 to sign right now. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? They said, well, if you tell us you're coming now, we'll give you $2,000. I'm like a check now? And they said, yeah. I said, where do I sign? Had I known that, I ended up going into a company, and it was a great company, but I was in a room before offshoring, and I was a coder. So I worked 14-hour days in a room with no windows, and I did that for about 2 years. And then I came back and said, hey, I want to sell this stuff. And they said, oh, that sounds good. Go ahead and sell this stuff. But come back in 10 years with some experience, and we'll let you answer an RFP. I said, well, what's an RFP? So that's how ignorant I was, a request for proposal. So that's how you get bigger deals. So then I launched my sales career. So I went to the only place that would hire me, which was an Irish software startup, and I moved to Boston. And that was the beginning of my sales career. History ever since. So I want to do a quick little exercise. So who's the biggest guy in this room? It's pretty big. Yeah, I see. I was pointing at him too. Can you come on up here and help me out? So we're gonna have a little fun. I'm getting the oohs and ahs. So he's probably arrested and put a couple of you in the clink. And I promise that, and he'll verify, it's not staged. I mean, we're going to be on a stage, but it's not staged. Hi, Bruce. Hi, Bruce. I'm Dave. So, about how much do you weigh?
198.
198? So I'm about 168. So he's got me by a few pounds. You got any back issues or anything? No. Okay. I'm not going to body slam you or anything, I promise. But what we're going to do is how powerful our own minds are, right? So play along. So just give me a 2-minute version on you. Wife, kids, dog.
Yeah, wife, one son. I was police officer for 30 years in the town over. Been here for 4 years.
Okay.
A great bunch of people here to work with and work for.
Like it here?
I love it here.
Okay. So stand over this way. And you want to stay here, right?
Sure.
Okay. So just put your arms out like this, all the way up, all the way up. And I'm going to do my best to just put your arms down. But before I do that, I want to talk about his life a little bit, okay? So Bruce is a big guy. He's a strong guy. He's certainly well known on campus, it sounds like, right? He's got a family. He said what? He has a son that's where?
Boston.
In Boston, Boston PD. You've been here 4 years, and you have a dog that I think you like.
Yes.
Okay? You love your dog?
I love my dog.
Okay, now I'm going to try and bend his arms, okay? I'm trying, and it's not working. But let's do the same exercise now, okay? So just close your eyes. He's still a big guy, and he's got keys and stuff, so I don't want to mess with him. Same exercise, except now, let's do a real exercise where, unfortunately, the dog's not doing well, and you just found out you're going to be laid off. And as much as you like Bryant, it's just not going to work out. So he folded, right? And he was resistant. Did you hear the grunt? Hey, big hand.
Grunt now?
Big hand, thank you. Bruce, thank you. So I say, so what? So what to that, right? Did he come up here believing he was stronger than me? And once I put the exercise in motion, he kind of felt where I was going. I couldn't bend him, right? But in a matter of about 10 seconds of telling him he was going to fail, or something failed in his life, he folded. And he didn't want to fold, but he did. And that's what happens in business. That's the toughest challenge that we all are going to have. So it's the art of positive thinking. And what's between your own two ears is going to be your own worst enemy. So I hope you remember that exercise, because I saw that a long time ago. That's one of those things that stayed with me. But that's something that we can all relate to in this room, whether you go on to own your own company or do your own thing, or you're working on passing your next test, or finding funding for spring break next week, right? It's the art of positive thinking. I had this conversation with my son about trying out for a baseball team recently, and the conversation went something like this. Try out. No, I don't want to. I'm going to get cut. Oh, okay. But if you go in there with that attitude, I promise you get cut. Worse, if you don't show up, I promise you're going to get cut. But at least show up, right? And sales to me is nothing more than the Pete Rose system. So like him or hate him, I don't like him as a person, but I respect him as a baseball player. Pete Rose has what? Does anybody know? The most what? Most hits. Anybody know the number? It's like 4,000 and something. That's a lot of hits. But you know what the most important stat to me is on that one? The most at-bats. And people forget that stat. So if you get enough at-bats, you're going to see enough fastballs. If you see enough fastballs, you're going to get enough hits. When you get enough hits, you go into the Hall of Fame. He'll go in after he dies. They'll never let him go in while he's living, but he'll go in, right? So it's that Pete Rose mentality of, hey, I'm just going to out-hustle you, right? So what I would tell people in interviews, and they would say to me coming out of Bryant, somebody over here asked the question, what'd you do out of school? I'd say, I wasn't the biggest kid. I wasn't the strongest kid. I played ball. I did okay. And they said, well, how did you get so good? And I said, well, I would just out-hustle you. I would stay on the treadmill a little bit longer. I would work out a little bit longer. I would long toss a little longer, right? And eventually, those little things add up to big things add up to opportunity. And I'd sit in different interviews, and I'd say, I've got a blue-collar work ethic. Don't let the suit and tie fool you. Now you could show up in jeans and loafers. Thank you, tech startup world. Just your mind is what's going to make or break you, okay? And you're talking to a guy who had a lifetime 2.8 GPA. I did well in my major, but overall I graduated with a 2.8. And that was working really hard. So it didn't come natural to me, is my point. Other questions? I saw some over there. Go ahead. I'm gonna need the mic because I can't hear you. Say it one more time for everybody.
Yeah. So, for example, that you have a new product that you just came out with, and people doesn't know anything about this, like just completely new category kind of thing. So, what's the best marketing tactic that you're gonna use to let people know about your stuff?
Well, so the question was, what's the best marketing tactic for something new? New product, new service, essentially. Do I have it right? So I don't think there is one magic bullet there. But I think you could certainly leverage your social circle, right? That starts with your natural market, and it kind of goes out from there. So if you think of it more like a bullseye of who do I know in my 6 degrees of separation, who's in those first 1 or 2 or 3 degrees of who it is that can maybe help you. And help could be a mentor, somebody to maybe do a focus group with, or an informal focus group. But then it becomes a game changer where people say, hey, yeah, I'd buy that. We say, okay, great, give me $20 for it. Whoa, hey, now it just got real, right? So what's the best way? I would start with my natural market. I would go out from there, and I would stay local if I could, right? And I would certainly leverage my social network. So that's my Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, whatever it is that you have. I mean, you've got thousands upon thousands of people at your fingertips, and I know we've all heard that. But what's cool about this room, and what I get excited about, is nobody's figured you out yet. Nobody knows how to communicate with you. They all think something's wrong with you, right? They want it yesterday. How much have you heard this? They're millennials. They don't know. They don't want to put the work in. How many of your professors might have even said that to you or discouraged you? There's been a few, right? Just going on a limb. You don't know what it was like. Or your parents might talk to you and say, hey, I walked up and downhill both ways, to school in the snow in June, right? I say BS, man. Those are the people that want to watch the world burn. And it's your job to show them, I've got something that can solve a problem. So it's business 101. Do you have a product or a service that fixes something? It could be a better mousetrap. I've got a better water bottle. I've got a better widget. I've got a better way to do things. And that's cool. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Do I have something that somebody, most importantly, is going to pay me for? And then can I scale and replicate? So to answer your question directly, start small, bullseye it, right? Natural market personally, but have personal conversations, right? Don't just rely on just LinkedIn or just one avenue, because the just one is where I see people fail and get in trouble, is they just go down one path and they end up in a rabbit hole, and then they try and navigate those caves, and they just get crushed. They just, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What else? Right there. Go ahead, just stand up and just shout it out.
So when you were bootstrapping your startup, there's so many different tasks that take the attention of a startup CEO. How did you think through or prioritize those many different tasks while trying to also bootstrap this company?
So the first thing I started with, the question was, how did I bootstrap and how did I kind of keep it together? So the first thing is my personal mission statement. And I do believe that a lot of people have two mission statements. And I'll call it one for work and one for home, right? I want to be a good employee. I want to be a good CEO. I want to be a good startup. I want to be a good this or that. And then I want to be a good person. I want to donate. I want to do all these other great things. For me, it's just, and it sounds a little hokey, but I just want to make the world a little bit of a better place because of me. And I feel like I do that. Some days are harder than others. But in terms of bootstrapping, it's really difficult because for me, I pulled and liquidated my entire 401k, which at the time was about 100 grand. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money today. But that was a lot of money back then when I had nothing, right? I wasn't 25 and single. I was 25, getting married, and was going to have a kid relatively right after we got married was pretty much our plan. And then we knew we wanted to have a family. So now I'm taking on added social risk of my family and saying, hey, can I do this? But in terms of bootstrapping, part of my strategy was, what's the best thing that can happen and what's the worst thing that can happen? There's been a number of books written about this, the proverbial T, writing down your pros and cons, but I mean, it's simple pen and paper, right? Or pencil and paper, whatever you might need. And to say, if I do this and it works, sky's the limit, right? You could put any number of zeros on the end of that check. Then it becomes a matter of execution. So first, I got my house in order. I got my personal life in order. And I focused on the prize. My prize was broken up into 3 different periods of time, and I'll call that the entrepreneurial time system. Free, focus, and buffer days. So write these down if you have a pen. And if you're the one at the table with a pen, laugh at everybody that doesn't have one. So a free day is exactly that. A free day is when I'm on vacation, right? When I'm traveling with my family, I'm off. My phone is off, I'm disconnected. A focus day is when I'm making my money, is when I'm selling something. Somebody's writing me a check for something, okay? And a buffer day is when I do my administrative work. I catch up on emails. I catch up on my social media. At the time, I was bootstrapping my own website, and I was doing all that before I really knew what SEO even was, right? So you have to master that time system of free, focus, and buffer days. And they're not combined, right? Like you don't have a half of a free day and a half of a buffer day. It's a free day. If you're off, you're off. And those go on the calendar first. Your focus days go on the calendar second. That's when you make all your money, right? And your buffer days fall somewhere in between. And in a perfect world, I said, boy, it'd be great if I can take 2 weeks off this calendar year, because we're so programmed, especially here in the United States versus take the UK or anywhere else in Europe for that matter, where they shut down like the month of August. They just like stop showing up, right? We look at them like they're crazy, and they look at us like we're nuts, and they live to 140, so go figure. I don't know who's right in that equation. But you got to get your house in order is my point. Once you have your house in order, then you can work on your business, in your business priorities, but try and keep that one mission statement if you can, okay? And again, for me, it was really simple, just to make the world a better place. So whether it's giving a quick speech like this, or it's giving a different type of talk, or it's helping somebody with financing, or whatever, try and do the best that you can. Couple more?
How did you make the transition from working for like a sales company, like the one you mentioned in Boston, to starting your own company and selling?
Does anybody here coach a sport? Little League, help out kids, big brothers, big sisters, anything like that, Special Olympics? That was always big when I was here. So it's kind of like coaching a sport, right? I tried to do all the stuff that all the bad coaches didn't do, right? I'm a baseball guy. So for me, it was a matter of trying to do the right thing more often, meaning showing up when I said I was going to show up, following up when I said I was going to follow up. So I became known for a guy having a great reputation of, hey, if Ken calls me, he knows he's going to get a call back. It might not be immediately. It's typically within a day or two, but I'm going to follow up. When they called me for this speech, I was like, I'll be there, right? And I showed up. And then I offered him like an incentive to say, hey, listen, if there's somebody in the room and they can talk to you guys about this, about doing some sort of raffle in terms of my time and giving a little bit of a give back to Bryant. It was doing the right things all the time, right? And it's those little things. It's saying please and thank you sometimes, and sometimes as simple as that. So it wasn't like this great big wave of stuff that happened, right? It was showing up and asking, hey, can you help me? Rather than, can I have a meeting with you? I've got something I want to run by you. I really do value your opinion. And then go into the room and ask them that question and listen to what it is that they have to say. So it's a lot of the little things, and it's like baseball, right? You go to any MLB park today, and you'll see professional hitters swinging and hitting off of a tee. Professionals that are making hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, right? It's still a very basic concept. I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think we've got time for one more? Okay, one more question. How did I develop and close my first sale? Well, it wasn't easy because I was unproven. I didn't have a paid proof of concept. It happened to be with MetLife at the time. So I went into their #1 franchise, happened to be in Connecticut, so it was in my backyard where I'm from, and said, here's what I'm thinking. Here's a problem that I know you have with your people. They all tell me the same thing, that, hey, can you just get me in the right room, right, with the right folks, and get out of my way, and then I'll close my deal. So I said, if I can do this in a pilot program with a very small group of people, and you could pick who they are, then will you help me to scale this for a nominal fee? And they said yes, and it kind of grew from there. But that was not an easy close at all. That's all the time I have. I will hang out. I know Kevin's up right behind me, but I want to thank you guys for having me. It's been my pleasure. So thank you, and good luck.